We're on the air, and this is Radio Entrepreneurs. My name is Jeffrey Davis, and I'm the host of the show. Excited to say that this week we're being hosted by our friends at NowSpeed in Westboro, Mass. And that must mean that I'm here with David Reske as my co-host.
Jeffrey, great to be here.
Thank you very much. Well, our first guest is Marc Osofsky, a Senior Vice President GM of Lionsbridge, and you're going to talk to us today, Marc, about global digital marketing, correct?
That's right, yeah. Lionsbridge is the world's largest globalization service provider. So we help all sorts of companies do global marketing.
Marketing and global marketing, you've taken, as big as you could get in terms of categories. Can we drive, is there a specialty or are there multiple specialties within that category?
Sure, yeah. So we predominantly help people with digital marketing, right? And the biggest challenge company has as they go global is trying to figure out how do you manage all these multiple channels, right? That companies like David are helping companies with. How do you manage websites? How do you manage social? How do you manage mobile? How do you manage, SEO and paid search? Now manage doing that across 20 languages, 40 languages, dozens of countries, and your salesperson expecting global simultaneous product launches, right? So everything's got to happen instantaneously. So that's the challenge companies are facing, right? They've got multiple platforms, they've got multiple languages, they've got time pressure, and they're looking for help, right? And so that's where we come in.
Let's say I was a client. Could you give me a sense of what kind of services I would be using specifically?
Sure. So let's start simple, right? Let's start with a website. So for most companies, a website's still kind of the global hub, right? So imagine you're Microsoft, right? You have a global website. How do I translate it, right? And how do I manage the continuous flow of translation, right? So I'm updating content on a regular basis. Maybe I have dozens of people, 40 different people updating it. How do I get those updates? How do I translate it? How do I then publish that content? Right? And there might be images with that text. You may have German language that expands 20 to 30% and breaks your design, right? So you got to look at the design and reconfigure it. Now you may have a campaign that's actually US specific in its concept, right? Maybe it's Christmas and you're in Brazil, right? And it's the summertime, right? So what are the images that make sense for that campaign in each market? So you've got to get feedback and test that before you launch it. So we provide people that look at that in that market and provide context before it gets published. Then what are the results, right? How many people are coming to the page? What are the conversion rates? How do we improve it? What color buy button works best in Italy, right? Those types of questions. So that's just a website. How do you translate it? How do you publish it? How do you test it, right?
But for me, in my old-fashioned, garments, I sort of say it as you're trying to create brand consistency no matter where the location or no matter where the execution.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And for companies, it's really trying to balance brand consistency and local relevancy.
Right.
Right. So
right.
Ideally, they all want to be in that upper right quadrant where it's globally consistent and locally relevant.
Right.
Very few companies are. Right. Most of them swing back and forth between a strong corporate group saying, this is our brand, it's got to be consistent, you must do it this way, or the other way where each market is doing their own thing, especially if it's social and they're running off and doing all sorts of fun stuff that corporate may not like, right? And the language changes and becomes this very casual conversational tone of voice when corporate's trying to be professional. So you get this major organizational challenge between these two groups. And so it's quite hard to enable a company to really get into that upper right quadrant.
So Marc, is the biggest challenge in managing that whole process kind of the technology content challenge of kind of flowing it in the right way and keeping it consistent? Or is it more of an organizational challenge where you're just trying to keep multiple marketing people in all these different countries on the same page?
Right. Yeah, it's really people, process, and technology. Unfortunately, all of these sort of thorny problems always involve all three. Marketing generally isn't that great at process, right? Marketers don't love process and standardization. And then you've got geographic and time zone disparity here that makes it even harder. So the first place we start with clients is really trying to align around a definition of what is our global brand voice. Most companies have never done that before, right? To get all their countries involved and say, what are our standards around our brand voice?
The way a Coca-Cola would do.
Exactly.
Right. I guess they would be the model.
Yeah, no, there's some great examples. Yeah, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, et cetera.
Right.
So that's the first step. And how do you get those elements defined into a codified structure and enable people to move forward?
If somebody wanted to find you or find Lionbridge, how would they do that?
Well, the simplest way is linebridge.com, and just click on the chat now.